Welcome back to Million Mile Millie. Today we're going to show you what a drop and hook is. It's one way we pick up and drop a load, most truckers' preference. As we pull into the yard, we meet a guard shack. Sometimes we talk to real people, sometimes we talk on our phone, and sometimes we talk into a little box like we are here. Sometimes they give you a map of the area, sometimes they have a map posted of the area, sometimes they just let you wander around until you figure out where you're supposed to be. Some locations have all kinds of rules, a list a mile long, and some places just let you come in on your own, drop the load, pick up your next load, grab your own paperwork out of a mailbox. Some places inspect your trailer, some of them just write down the number of the trailer, and some of them don't care what the trailer is. Most places insist that you bring in a trailer if you're picking up a load, but very few guarantee an empty trailer if you're bringing in a load. Right now Mark's getting the spot they want us to drop the empty in and the dock door they want us to pick the load up from. He's also trying to find out where he can get his paperwork, and she says to go to the driver's lounge. Some days we pull in and we just drive straight up to the guard shack. Some days we pull in and we wait 20 to 40 minutes behind other trucks ahead of us. Basically, every yard has a different routine, and even yards from the same company can have different routines, but they all expect us to know exactly what we're supposed to do and is what's expected of us, like we're mind readers. Okay, time to wander around the yard and see if we can find the numbers that she gave us. Some yards have the numbers written down easy to find, and others have them hidden back behind the trailer on the wall, and others have them posted hanging across the top of the trailers between the light posts. So you never know where you're going to find these numbers where you're supposed to park your trailer. It's always fun during winter when they give you a number to park at and all the numbers are covered in snow. We're lucky here, it's a smaller yard, so we shouldn't have to wander around for too long. A good drop and hook we can do in about 20 minutes, but it's not the rule. There are plenty of times where it takes quite a bit longer, like waiting at the gate I mentioned, waiting for your paperwork to be printed, waiting for your load to be finished loaded if they're running behind, and sometimes we even have to move other trailers out of the way so we can get to the trailer we're picking up. So that can take a little more time, dropping, hooking, and parking other trailers. So we found our spot, and Mark got really lucky because this is a very easy back. It's practically a straight back. He didn't have to do much maneuvering at all to get this trailer in its spot. Right now he's logging on duty instead of drive to save those minutes that he wants to use later for driving today. And now he's just got to get disconnected and drop the trailer. So we're almost done with the drop part. Now for the hook part. He's disconnecting the air and electrical lines. Now he's lowering the landing gear. A lot of times they have a line on the ground or like that piece of cement where they want the landing gear to sit. And then other yards we're dropping the landing gear in a mud puddle. Instead of pulling the lever on the fifth wheel, we have a little button here. We hold it in for 3 to 5 seconds and we hear a little clinking sound out the window, and we see the little red notification telling us that we've been disconnected, and we can just pull away from the trailer. Occasionally it gets jammed and we have to climb out and pull it manually. That typically happens if it's raining out or Mark's asleep, because I have a hard time pulling that darn lever. Okay, there's our trailer. We're going to come back and pick that up as soon as we get our paperwork. So we're parking here in front of what looks like the driver's lounge. It says receiving office, but we're shipping, so it should say shipping and receiving office. Well, would you look at that? The door says, "Do not enter." Okay, so Mark's asking the guy what he's supposed to do. The guy's getting on his radio and calling around to find out what we're supposed to do, where we're supposed to get our paperwork. And now Mark is headed back. Frustrated because we just wasted about 5 minutes of our time. Well, now we'll go down and pick up our trailer. Typically, the most time we spend on a yard is spent driving up and down the aisles looking for the location we're supposed to drop our trailer, or just looking for an empty spot sometimes, and then doing the exact same thing, driving up and down all of the aisles trying to find the trailer number. Sometimes they don't give you the exact location that it's at, or it's not where it's supposed to be. One time I picked up a load and they gave me my number, and I went out, started looking, and I found the first trailer and the first 4 numbers were right, and I was so excited, and then realized the last 2 of the 6 numbers weren't right. So I drove just a few feet farther down, and the next trailer I found had all of the right numbers, except for, instead of a 71, it was a 17 on the last 2. And then a little farther down, I finally found the one with my 17. And oh my gosh, what a nightmare it would have been if I had just picked up the wrong trailer and hauled it halfway across country without realizing that the numbers were the same but not totally right. I thought it was very strange to see 3 trailers in the same vicinity with the first 4 numbers all identical. So once Mark backs up and we hear the locking sound of the 5th wheel, he'll do a little pull forward to make sure we're attached well. Get out and hook up our lines again. This time he's bringing the landing gear up. He peeks underneath to make sure he can see the locking mechanism wrapped around the kingpin properly, and he removes any cocks that are blocking the tires. Pulls away from the door here because this trailer is actually still open. Most of the time they're closed and sealed before we even get them. So from here he's going to put our lock on for security. We have a deadbolt, and he's going to close the doors. They usually leave the seal right in the back of the truck, so he'll pull that out and seal the doors with the seal, and then we'll make sure it matches the number on our paper. Since this time he can see inside the trailer, he can see how it's packed and how heavy it looks. We usually have to just refer to the bill of lading to see how heavy our load is, and then adjust the tandems accordingly. But this time he can see that it's relatively empty, and the tandems are going to be able to be up front pretty close. Once we have the tandem set where he thinks the weights are going to be proper, I'll just watch him for hand signals. There he goes. He told me to stop right there. It's really hard to move these tandems 1 notch. 1 notch is about 7 inches between the 2 notches, and to move a semi-truck 7 inches is nearly impossible. It wants to go much farther than that with just a little teeny tap on the gas. Now that he's made sure the trailer is roadworthy, lights are working, tires are good, brakes are good, air lines are good, and no damage anywhere. And oh yeah, those mud flaps. We've got the mud flaps. That's the biggest thing we run into most of the time, is a missing mud flap. Occasionally we pick up a trailer that's already got a flat tire on the yard, and we definitely get stuck on the yard for a long period of time when that happens. Now, when we couldn't go into the receiving office because it said a do not enter sign there, we found out that we're supposed to pick up our paperwork at the guard shack. So hopefully they'll have it here and know what they're doing at this point. Since COVID, there's been a lot of changes at warehouses, a lot of changes, and one of them is far fewer staff. They used to have more people working at the guard shack to get the trucks checked in and checked out, and they used to have the system together better, but I think they're getting a lot of turnover, so the employees are regularly newly trained and not always sure what they're supposed to do, which makes dropping hooks or any other kind of load a little more challenging and frustrating. Which it takes us back to the exercise in patience. Once Mark gets the paperwork, he'll make sure the sill number matches and the trailer number matches and re-verify the weight to decide whether we need to weigh it or move the tandems at all. And then we will be almost ready to leave. We still need to get all of our paperwork done to send into our company. We have to do a bunch of work on the computer to let them know where we're at, when we're leaving, when we plan to be at the next location, and the trailer numbers, etc., etc. And we need to get our address put in so we know where we're going when we pull out of here. We typically put the address in when we're hooking up to the trailer, but I think he's nervous since I'm videotaping him again. So the total time for this drop and hook was 28 minutes, which is pretty good. We didn't have too many complications that came up. When you back up and hook to the trailer, it's usually pretty jarring. And so whoever's sleeping typically wakes up when they feel that hit, that hard hit. You got to hit it relatively hard in order to make the locking mechanism work, but you don't have to hit it too hard. Just depends on how high the trailer is, how low the trailer is, how heavy the trailer is. Sometimes it's hard to get under it, and then by the time you give it enough gas or fuel to get under it, it takes off and will hit harder than you intended. And I always scream, sorry, 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 if that happens. And then other nights, it's just this beautiful hook where you just slide under it, hear the clink, and there's no jarring. Another thing I sometimes have problems with is the landing gear. If the trailer's really, really heavy and the landing gear is too high or too low, I can't take my truck under it until I bring the kingpin down to the right level to meet the fifth wheel. And the really heavy loads are very difficult to crank. I hate when I have to wake up Mark because of that. It doesn't happen too often, thank goodness, but I am always so grateful when there's another trucker on the yard that's willing to lend me a hand so I don't have to wake Mark up. So that is a basic drop and hook. Drop and hook. So when they give us short loads and we're only running about 600 miles or even 300 miles between loads, we're doing drop and hook, drop and hook, drop and hook all day long. When they give us the loads all the way across country, we don't have to do a drop and hook for 2 whole days. I think every trucker out here would be thrilled to death if all loads were made standard drop and hook and we never had to deal with a live load. I'll tell you all about those someday. Thanks for riding it with us and enjoy the view of Florida here as we head towards Laredo. Pulling in for fuel and to weigh the load, and look, it starts raining just as we arrive. Of course.